I thought yesterday was really an extraordinary performance by the House managers. They managed to alienate senators, attack their own jury. You know, I mean, when you had Representative Noddler up there saying that it would be treacherous for senators to vote against their amendments, this was like at 12:30 at night, that it would be a vote against the United States. That, of course, brought an admonishment from the Chief Justice of the United States, and rightly so. So if the point was to go on for 13 hours to no apparent purpose, frequently using rebuttal time just to delay further and to alienate the very senators that they're trying to convince, then I'd say it was a raging success on their part. But if the point was to try to convince people, I think they're off to a terrible start. So it was clear yesterday that they were not ready for trial, that they did not want to actually proceed to try this case, and that they had no plan to actually persuade senators. So I look forward to seeing what today brings, but I hope we can actually move to arguments today, and I'll be interested to see what their strategy is. They've got a lot of work to do to try to win back over senators. I can tell you that by 2 a.m. last night, people were not happy.
Senator, but what's wrong with hearing from John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney if they can add more information to what you're considering in terms of your votes?
Well, first of all, I will say that there's a point in the trial at which we are going to consider that. The majority leader has built in a time to consider that. And I think one of the things that was so frustrating to senators last night was that here we are in the 12th and 13th hour of this. Again, you've got the House side frequently using rebuttal time just to lengthen out the proceedings, knowing that they're going to have this debate later on. But I will also say that when it comes to calling additional witnesses, to your question, Manu, the Senate is not an investigative body. I mean, we are not here to open up new lines of investigation, to chase down things that the House didn't do. The House had the opportunity to pursue these issues. They did not take that opportunity in most cases. And now they want the Senate effectively to do their work. It was increasingly clear to me that they just really don't want to try the case that they have. I mean, they have a case, they don't want to try it. They want to open up new lines of inquiry, they want to make a different case. I just don't think that's going to happen.
So the president has said we have all the material, they don't have the material. That's quite an admission, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure what comment you're referring to, but I will note that yesterday I believe we admitted into evidence all of the House's actual record. So their documents, their witnesses that they got have all been admitted into the Senate record. And those are available for senators to consider. They're going to have the chance to make their case today. I certainly, they've got a lot of work, I think, to do to persuade senators, because yesterday was a bad start.
Senator, do you think that, were you surprised that Leader McConnell conceded to changing the resolution during the lunches?
Not necessarily. I think he's pretty responsive to his caucus.
What did Collins specifically say and other senators that made him change it?
I can't speak for her.
Senator,
Yes,
Chief
ma'am.
Justice admonished Nadler, as you said, but he also admonished the other two defense teams. Do you think that they were in the wrong as well?
You know, it's interesting. So I've worked for Chief Justice Roberts. I was a clerk to him. That statement from him is a very extraordinary thing. I've never heard him deliver an admonishment like that from the bench ever. He chooses his words very, very carefully. He cited a 1905 impeachment case, in which one of the sides was using language that was thought to be inappropriate. And so while he was careful, I think, to be even-handed about it, as is appropriate judicially, it's very clear what the impetus for that was. It was Noddler getting up and calling the President's counsel a bunch of liars, repeatedly calling them liars, which is a terrible breach of courtroom decorum and etiquette, but then also calling senators part of a cover-up, saying that a vote against him was treachery, and saying a vote against him was a vote against the United States. I mean, that's an extraordinary thing to say on the floor of the United States Senate in the middle of a trial, and that's what drew the rebuke, and rightly so. I can tell you there was open gasping on the Senate floor when Noddler was saying these things. I mean, it's really, really extraordinary. If the goal was to persuade, they took a huge step backward last night.
Senator Hawley, at this point, what's the best reason not to hear from witnesses or subpoena additional documents? What's the reason not to?
Well, I mean, I think the point is that, look, the House has had the chance to build their case. Now they get to try their case. And all we've heard so far is that they don't actually want to call any of the witnesses that are already part of their case, that are in the case. They want to call other witnesses who they did not take the effort or make the effort to bring before their body. Now they want the Senate to do that. And it looks like to me they just don't want to try the case that they have, and understandably so, based on what we heard last night.
Senator, would you be open to an exchange, a witness exchange, the likes that's being talked about now?
Well, I thought I understood Mr. Schiff to say last night that there would be no such exchange. I thought he was addressing that. I think there was a Washington Post story that broke late last night, and I thought Schiff meant to address that on the floor at about 1 a.m. But you all might know better than I if that was what he was getting at. But I will just say for my part, if we're going to hear from witnesses, I have my own witness list. I'd absolutely want to hear from Hunter Biden. He is relevant. He is material. If you read the brief, I had the chance to reread all of the briefs on the floor of the Senate last night. And if you look closely at the House's briefs, they are at pains to say that, of course, what happened was President Trump's behavior was improper because, of course, Hunter Biden did nothing wrong. Well, really? I mean, that question is quite central to their own argument. So I'd absolutely want to hear from Hunter Biden. I'd absolutely want to hear from the whistleblower. I'd like to hear from Adam Schiff. I think Adam Schiff is probably a fact witness. We know that he communicated with the whistleblower before there was a complaint. There's a major question of fact there, where to find questions of fact. So I'd like to hear from him as well.
So are you willing to negotiate Bolton for Biden?
Say again.
Are you willing to negotiate on the witness, Bolton for Biden, for example?
My view is that we have the evidence in front of us. The trial briefs are quite voluminous. The House record has been admitted into Senate evidence. I don't think we need additional witnesses, but my point is, if we're going to call witnesses, then there's a number of folks I'd like to hear from, and Hunter Biden's at the top of that list. Thank you, everybody.